Hello, folks. This is Joe from My Geek Scene. I'm here with teacher, rapper, hero, and now new author. Well, you wrote stuff in the past, but new memoir author, Megaran. How are you doing? Oh, nice plug.
I'm doing great. It's crazy to say, I've been working on this book forever, so to finally have it out is a huge lift for my spirits, Um, yeah, I'm doing well. We talked a little bit about it, just working hard, trying to stay focused, stay positive, despite this world we live in, and be that light, if you can. But it does get tiresome, but we're still here, still going.
Well, since you flashed that book, it's called Dream Master, a Memoir. So, talk about it. I don't necessarily have any questions since I've already read the book, but you would be the best promo for this book. So feel free to have at it.
Well, Dream Master is all about my journey from, humble beginnings, I guess, in Philadelphia to, just being a kid who was a little bit different and had ideas to do things his own way, and that's really what it's about. Me kind of stumbling and bumbling through life, making mistakes, learning from them, getting better from them, uh, taking a career in teaching and education, and then moving into music and where that's brought me. And yeah, it's quite a journey, and I think an improbable one, at least for even me. So just seeing how my career trajectory had changed so many times, I think it's an interesting read.
All right. I did enjoy the book,
Thank you.
but one of the things that actually popped in my mind while I was reading it was, were there any particular lessons that you learned while in the process of creating and publishing the book?
Oh yeah, I learned a lot about writing books, and I don't like it as much as I love making music. As much as I hate about the book market for sure. Like, you hear all the same things. Like people talk about the music industry being like shady or like predatory, and I kind of feel those same practices happening in the book world. And it's like I've talked to publishers who were like, "Oh man, if this book had a little more black pain, we'd be able to give it a book deal." Or, oh, if this book was, a little less about video games and more about, the black struggle that's really selling right now. Like I've literally had conversations like that made my stomach turn. And yeah, like literally the book world, I mean, much like music probably too, it's very cyclical and it runs in terms of trends. And so whatever's hot right now is what they're looking for. And if you don't fit into that, you're better off doing it yourself, which is what I did. I wound up putting it out self-publishing because I didn't want my message or my book to be tampered with. That's really what it came down to. A lot of people were like, well, let's just change this, take out this chapter, move this, don't say that, say more of this, and then we'll be good to go. And I didn't feel right about that. So I learned that the publishing book literature industry is just as bad and maybe worse than the music industry. So that's what I learned. But much like that, I've had to do it. I mean, it only makes sense. The whole book is about doing it my own way. I didn't sign any major record deal. Why would I sign a major publishing deal? It's DIY is just my way, So that's what I learned is that I have much more fun and feel better about myself when I do it by myself.
That's got to be more rewarding in the long run.
Oh yeah, when I look at like I ordered 5,000 books and I didn't think I'd sell them all. I thought I'd have some more left for tour when we eventually get back on the road or cons. And like I don't have any more. Like this is literally my last one, and it's a little marked up from me like making notes or when I do read-alongs or things online. So yeah, like I didn't think it would do that well. And maybe if I'd signed with a publisher, it'd be doing even better. You get 20,000, 40,000 best, New York Times bestsellers. But I don't need any of that. I'm definitely very much rewarded by the response from it so far.
So the first printing is now done. Are you going to be coming up with another one?
I don't know. We'll see. It's always based on the demand. I always say, if the people want it bad enough, I say this about everything I do. If the people want it bad enough, it'll happen. Much like Black Materia Remake happened. A lot of other things that I've done that I didn't think I would necessarily do have happened because of fan demand. So if I get a bunch of people saying I need more signed books, then we're going to have to put another order in and do a second printing. There was like maybe one or two small like typos, maybe not spelling errors, but just like maybe like short either factual mistakes or things that maybe weren't totally checked that I need to fix for draft two. So if we do a second press, I'll have to get back in there, and those things make me so mad. I think for MagFest it said it had several hundred people instead of several thousand or something like that, and I was like, why would I say that? Like, so things like that where I'm just like, how could I make that mistake? So second press will fix those little things.
Okay. So I have read the book, and for the rest of this interview, I'm actually going to talk about things that you brought up in the book, and along with other questions, topically. So, starting with the first question, on page 24, you mentioned that you loved your trips to D.C. because you visited monuments and museums, and those made you the history buff that you are today. Do you have any particular areas of history that you focus on?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the Harlem Renaissance. Also, any periods of kind of enlightenment and new thinking. So, of course, the original Renaissance, then to the Harlem Renaissance. It's extremely interesting to think about times where like a wave of creativity hit society and culture, and through music, I think we've had several of those kind of renaissances. And so, yeah, that particularly the idea of a renaissance, like new ways of thinking that just kind of swell and wash over entire cultures are always extremely interesting. So those are my favorite time periods for sure.
Do you have any favorite history trivia facts that you pop out from time to time?
History trivia facts. When I watch Jeopardy, occasionally stuff comes up and I'm like, yep, I knew that one. But like, gosh, I can't think of any right off the top of my head though. But there are several. Usually, like, I've taken so many Black history courses, so I have so many of those little trivia facts in the back of my head. But like, gosh, now that you put me on the spot, I got nothing. I'm a fraud. I know nothing.
I don't even feel like I know you anymore.
I got nothing.
So, at one point in college, you changed your major to African and African American Studies. Are there any books or authors that you would recommend from those courses?
Oh yeah, that's a good one too. I think I have a note somewhere. I don't want to like go to my cheat sheet, but I have a page down somewhere of like recommended books from college that I really loved. But any poetry by James Weldon Johnson is my favorite. He inspired a song I did called "A Poet," as well as him writing the Black National Anthem, "Lift Every Voice and Sing." Cornel West's book "Race Matters" was the first book to ever like completely stump me as a human being. I was just like, why can't I understand this? Like the words, the vocabulary in it is so next level that like trying to read through the introduction of this is like advanced rocket science. And I was like, what is wrong with me? These are English words. Why can't I understand this? And yet so it made me want to dig and learn so much more. And I think it's one of the books I can probably thank my vocabulary for. It's like I was highlighting every third word and just being like, all right, what does this mean? What does this mean? Trying to use context clues and couldn't figure it out. So that's something that I think if you really want to stretch the brain, Cornel West's Race Matters for sure. I reference W.B. Du Bois' The Miseducation of the Negro in the book, also one of my favorites. Gosh, there's so many good ones. Black Boy. Gosh, there's just like so many, but those are a few of my absolute favorites that I say you gotta like, if you want a little bit of a challenge or to learn something new, like those are a few, but I'll make a list. We should do that. Like you have like a supplement to this interview, and then like, it'll be like Mega Ran's reading list. And like, I'll give you like 5 books that I really love and think that everybody should read.
Okay. I mean, I was going to ask, like, well, in the Cornel West book, was he always referring to everyone as brother and sister? Like he does, like in every podcast, like, Brother Johnson.
Oh, of course.
I've listened to quite a few interviews of Cornel West over the last year. Very enlightening.
Yeah. He's great.
So you told a story in your book. You told a story about a staff meeting about a student having trouble getting accepted into community college because the school was not accredited to give out diplomas. I don't have a question on the subject, but reading that reminded me of the Betsy DeVos song collab you did with Nomad Hip Hop Collective.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of that, what I was thinking, was from that as well. I think that story experience, that experience definitely inspired some of those lyrics. Um, yeah, well, I'm glad there's no question there, because I was just completely numb. Like I don't ever remember feeling like such a failure to children as I felt at that moment. I was just like, how are we doing this to kids? And for those of you who haven't read the book, it's just, short synopsis is I was at a school, and one of our students who graduated the year before came back and said that she was having trouble getting accepted to community college. And we're like, how? And everyone in the room, at least the administration, was like, oh yeah, that's because we're not accredited. And like duh. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we're making kids go to school here, and we're not giving them a diploma that they can use to, I don't know. So it just really made me sad to realize that they don't have any sort of belief in these kids, to go to the next level, or for them to be great. And they're not giving them the tools they need, which is like the number one thing that a school's supposed to do. So I was really like sad. And I knew from that moment that like this wasn't going to be for me long, because it's like finding out how the sausage is made. It's like, how long do you really want to work at the sausage plant when you're seeing like all the gunk up close that's going into it? So that was me.
It's sad. It's sad.
And I hope that's not everybody's experience, but charter schools and alternative schools, sometimes they're able to kind of skirt the rules, in ways that I didn't even understand at that time. And but I've seen some things, from this book, that in education, that really made me not trust it. So it's put me in a position where I don't know if I could, like, with a full conscious, like, go back to teaching in schools again. I'd have to do so much research before I felt comfortable, doing that and representing that kind of system.
Well, you mentioned before to find a mentor to help you grow when you are following your dream. Who were/are your mentors?
Hmm. Well, when I was starting off in teaching, there was a woman named Miss Cook, and she worked at a school. She was a middle school teacher, and she was so good at what she did, and a veteran, and she just gave me all the tools of the trade. And she helped me to become a better teacher, as well as just a better, like, person. And I was able to transfer some of that stuff and translate it to music as well. Through music, some of the guys I came up with making music with, Oheni Savant, incredible musician, lyricist, who's been a huge mentor to me throughout my journey. Rockadala, aka iRock, a guy out here in Phoenix who went from music to now producing feature films, has always been there with great advice for me. My mother, of course, she's seen it all, been through it all, done it all, so she's always got great insight. And Dr. Sam Richards from my Penn State years, and Ms. Dixon, one of my English professors in high school, who I still talk to on Facebook. She's always got great advice and insight. So those that's kind of my support group right now, for sure. Also keeping it Detroit based, young RJ, his father, RJ Rice, is like a legendary, music producer out there and beyond, and he's done amazing things with great groups. And so he's got such insight. So after the Two Hands Up album, RJ has been a huge mentor to me.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that segues into my next topic, because I would like to talk to you about the figures in the world of hip hop. So, at the time when I wrote this question, he was still around, but unfortunately, MF Doom had passed away just this past year. So, what is the first MF Doom album that you heard, and what went through your mind, if you can recall that?
That's crazy that you were going to ask this question even before he passed. I just got a vinyl in the mail of it, Operation Doomsday. It just came today. I had the cassette way back in the day, then I got a CD, and now it's like his official kind of debut as MF Doom, sort of. But just a great record, awesome samples, great grasp of language, lyrics, everything. So, but I don't know if that's the first thing I heard. First time I heard him, I didn't even know it was him. He was a rapper named Zev Love X, who appears on the song "The Gas Face" by Third Base. Um, After that, he goes through some changes, goes through some label drama. It comes out as MF Doom, and I saw a list of best hip hop of maybe 2004, and every website I respected had Mad Villainy, the album, as the top album of 2004, and I was all the way through 2004 and I hadn't heard it, and I was like, how is this the top album of the year when I haven't even heard it? I was like real snobby. So I'm like, I'm going to check this out. We'll see. And I put it on and I was blown away. So Mad Villainy is still the first thing I've heard from Doom, and it's still the best thing, I think. It's such a great album.
It's funny that you brought up the Gas Face, the song that made MC Hammer put a hit out on Third Base.
Oh, yeah. Classic
Allegedly.
hip-hop history. Allegedly. Don't mess with Hammer. But yes, at that time, Hammer was a running joke in hip hop. He was an easy target. A lot of the guys, made fun of him, and Third Base did it on their introduction single. Took shots at Hammer.
Yeah, but no, even Redman have even stated in an interview, it's like Hammer does not play, and I wouldn't make fun of anyone anyways. I don't even have that ability to be creative about making fun of people, and it's just not been my misdemeanor. So I have respect for what MC Hammer has done for back in the day.
Oh yeah, he's a legend. Yeah, you listen to any rapper talking now, they're like, man, you don't play with Hammer. Like, Hammer's a legend. Hammer's a vet. Like, he danced around, he smiled, but he had some real guys behind him that were able to get some things done. So, you don't grow up in Oakland and not be, a little bit streetwise. So shout out to Hammer.
For sure. Was there anything about MF Doom that appeals to you?
Well, yeah, the fact that he could flip all these different cartoons, references, and things, and be silly, but also be very deliberate in his delivery, and he was just so good at making it look so effortless, And he's the MC's MC. I always say he's a rapper's favorite rapper. There's a video of Mos Def rapping every word of MF Doom's lyrics. It's such a great, fun thing to see. He's so amazed with the way Doom plays with words, and it's just so dope to see a guy who's also very heralded for his lyricism be like, no, I love that guy. It's awesome to see people that are fans of each other. So yeah, Doom was a genius, an evil genius. He definitely did some things that would fit to the villain moniker, and personally, I know at least 5 or 6 people who have personally knew him or did business with him or knew him on the come up behind the scenes, and they've all said the same thing, super good guy, but maybe got a little jaded by the industry early on, and I'm not sure how much you know about the stories, but he was Zev Love X. He puts out an album. It's a little controversial with a group called KMD. The title of the album is Black Bastards. They're like, well, we can't sell this, and the label's like, nope. They take it, shelve it. They don't put it out. He thinks this is the album that's going to, get him, going. And they just don't put it out. He goes through a bunch of label drama trying to get out of his deal. They're like, oh, give us $1 million. You can get out of your deal. He's like, well, I don't have $1 million. Then his brother, or a guy who was like his brother, Chubb Rock, gets killed in a car crash. And so there's so many things happening that I think really soured him on, doing business the traditional way. And in the process of that. So a lot of people look at it like, oh man, this guy was, a scumbag for doing this or doing that. There's all types of stories. He would sell people beats that he made that over 2 or 3 different times to different people, or sell verses to other folks that, he had already sold, things like that, or promise people things that he didn't come through on. But I think that, talking to a lot of my friends who knew him, they're like, you had to understand that he was young and got kind of initiated to the industry in probably the worst way possible, through bad deal after bad deal, broken promise after broken promise. Eventually that gets to you,
I did enjoy your freestyle to him that you did within the last few months. And also, while reading the comments for that video, you responded to a comment on that video and stated that Doom taught you so much. What lessons did you learn?
I learned that it was okay to be your full self from a guy like that. You know, Doom made beats, he rapped, he produced records, he went out, sought out the samples that he would use. He would listen to a late night sci-fi show, find a little piece of something that said the evil villain, and then he'll just cut it up, put that into a song somewhere else and make it sound really cool. I just love the way his brain worked. And so it made me listen to things differently. You know, at first I was thinking, oh, you can only sample things that are on records and then later on CDs or on MP3s. But no, like TV, you know, the things you see in real life, like anything can be an inspiration piece. So I definitely learned that from Doom.
All right. On page 134 of your book, you wrote that you met MURS, Skyzoo, and Ninth Wonder. Why do you consider them to be your heroes?
I don't consider them to be heroes at all. I hate all of them. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I mean,
Megaran's turning heel.
You know, we've spent a lot of time in this giving big ups to a lot of people, and I don't ever mind giving, you know, props to where they are due, you know. So guys like MURS, I've seen, you know, constantly reinvent himself, work through different label situations and create really dope music. Skyzoo as well. You know, these are underrated kind of guys who have like just kind of stayed the course. And I think that that's really what I learned from guys like that, was being able to see them stick to who they are and keep creating. Like, it's easy when someone says, oh man, if you just make the one little bubblegum pop single, you'll blow up and be a millionaire. And then for those guys to say, yeah, I know that, but I'm also not going to do that, you know? So it's really inspiring to see guys like that who have stayed true to themselves for so long. So yeah, that's why I'm a big fan of all those guys.
Have you ever been able to meet other rap heroes like Chubb Rock or The Roots?
No, I talked to Chubb Rock on the phone. He was very, very cool. And we had a great conversation. I mean, Speak Green knows him well and put him on the phone for me. And I was just like, whoa, Chubb Rock. Oh my gosh. Haven't met any of the Roots outside of, I mean, just briefly. Questlove was DJing somewhere in Philly and I gave him a copy of The Call. He probably threw it in the garbage. I don't know. He was just like, thanks, man. And then kept on going about his day. But no, I haven't. I met Snoop, and that'll probably go in the next book because that was in, I guess, 2019. So that's after this book ended. We did a show together. Me and MC Lars were on the same bill as Snoop Dogg and Grandmaster Flash, which makes no sense, but it happened. There was a Twitch, Reddit, South by Southwest showcase happening, and Snoop was the headliner. And so we're on stage rapping about Edgar Allan Poe. And he's walking by and he's kind of bobbing his head and waving. And I was just like, Snoop, shout out to Big Snoop, you know. And he was like, keep going, nephew. And so that's always been in the back of my head. Keep going, nephew.
So on page 60, you mentioned Outkast, Mos Def, Talib Kweli, and Black Star. Are there any particular songs that you recommend to people who are unfamiliar but want to learn more?
For sure. Talib Kweli's first album, I think all of it is a classic. Reflection Eternal. It's him and DJ High Tech. They have a lot of great records on there. Particularly, there's a song called Good Morning, where morning is spelled like, you know, being sad. And it's a really great talk about like how like life and basically life as a black person is just extremely difficult, you know, and how like, you know, you could try to live right and do all the things you can, but like sometimes street life can get you, sometimes, you know, racism can get you sometimes, you know, so it's a great tale of how, you know, life can kind of get you caught up. Talib has another song, Get By, which is a classic. Mos Def, his whole first album, Black on Both Sides, is incredible. He has a song called Mathematics, where he tells all these different stories about numbers and what those different things mean. Umi Says is a great one. Who else did you mention there?
Oh, I said Outkast, Mos Def, Talib Kweli, and Black Star.
Outkast, I mean, their entire catalog is pretty much flawless, but my favorite album from them is Aquemini, and the title track, Aquemini, is really, really great. Art of Storytelling as well on that album. But yeah, their entire catalog, you'll learn something from it. Anytime Andre 3000 speaks, it's like everyone just stops to listen. Um, and you said someone else after Outkast. I don't remember though.
Mos Def.
Oh yeah, I did Most Def. So yeah, those are the guys for sure. I think you can big up and find if you do a little digging. Um, these are guys that are definitely like will teach you something through the music, which I always appreciate.
So, any recommended tracks by Cannibus?
Mm, yeah. Um, Cannabis was really great at guest appearances. So what he would do is when he would pop up on a guest song, he would just kind of murder it. So like if you really, I think that Cannabis, his biggest contribution to hip hop was the addition of scientific, mathematic like theories into rhymes and making them somehow make sense. He was like his whole gimmick was like I'm a rhyme machine. Like so I'm gonna calculate the different ways that I could battle you and win. So he has these incredible freestyles. So I think if you just search YouTube best Cannabis freestyles, this guy was a monster. He didn't really, I think, put it together as far as like solo songs, but whenever he guested or someone at the radio station said, "Hey, kick a freestyle," he shined. Like he was one of a kind. Like his talent may not like reflect in the greater hip hop pantheon. He didn't sell a ton of records. He didn't have like the hit song, but like his lyricism is just at another level. So any of his greatest freestyles, I don't think they even have titles. It's just he rapped on someone else's beat and just destroyed it, and that's just how it went. Really, really, really good dude as far as rhyming skills.
Okay. Do you have any favorite hip hop videos or hip hop videos that you feel are important to you?
Okay, I'm going to answer this, of course, but I want to know how many times you're going to ask me about other people during this interview.
No, that's pretty much it. That was like the last of it because I'm actually going into your.
And I do love doing that, but I'm like, I can give you essential hip hop listening in a private conversation, or we can do that here.
I flat out told you that this interview was going to be mainly about hip hop in your book. Like I have no nerdy
this is all stuff that's referenced, so it makes sense. It's a very different interview than normal, so I appreciate it. I was just wondering. Okay, so I want to try to give away all the stuff before we get to another question that has that. So okay.
Oh no.
All right, so essential hip hop videos.
I went and made it awkward.
So okay, for me, one of the greatest hip hop videos of all time is for a Cool G rap song called "On the Run." Now, this is somewhere in the '90s. Cool G rap's another extremely awesome lyricist who a lot of people credit to their styles. Like Nas says he has a lot of Cool G rap in him. So Cool G Rap made a song called "On the Run," and it's just like a mafioso fantasy song. But like in the song, he's like a don, and he had to kill the don's, the other guy who was trying to cheat him, and now he's running from the big don, And so it's a great story. It's so vivid, and then the entire video, it's acted out, shot for shot, everything he says. Oh, blood splatters on the sidewalk, and it's like it happens in the video. So like it's so vivid. And I always love that for sure with videos. Anytime they can either get it on the nose or flip it completely to where I didn't expect it, which happens a lot of times in Missy Elliott's videos. So one of my favorite is Missy Elliott's "Sock It To Me" video, which has like Mega Man and Rush and all kinds of cool stuff in it, but like well before its time. And yeah, Missy was always thinking 10 steps ahead of the game with her videos, for sure. The Roots have a song called "What They Do," and it's just basically like a cautionary tale, like be yourself, don't copy what they do. So the whole video is the Roots pretending to be something they're not. So they're pretending to be like big budget baller, rappers with big chains. And then like a caption will come up. So they're driving in a Benz and they're like, they rented this. Or they're wearing a big chain, and then a caption comes up that says, they're just borrowing this for the day, and things like that. They have a they like the obligatory beatdown cam, and it's like a camera that shows upward and them just punching and kicking at the camera, like, so it's weird to see them like doing something different. So stuff like that is always what inspired me, like just going completely left of center.
All right, so let's take a step away from your favorite for hip hop and whatnot, but actually I wanted to talk about a few of your albums. So let's start with The Call. So when I was listening to it, something that stood out to me: why did you choose to include excerpts from Barbara Jordan at the 1976 Democratic National Convention keynote speech and Jesse Jackson's 1984 David and Goliath speech on Still Ain't Good Enough?
Oh, man, when I listen to Still Ain't Good Enough today, I think, who is this guy? The guy rapping. I'm like, who is, like, I'm so amazed that I was thinking this way at such a young time, at least for me in music, and it reflects a lot on what I was around. Like, I was fresh out of school. I was reading a lot of books, a lot of African-American history stuff, a lot of politics, and a lot of that inspired the album in general. And Still Ain't Good Enough in general, the song has two different stories. The first story is talking about, politics and just the world and how, like, yes, we vote. Yes, we're here. Yes, we're citizens. But there are a lot of people who feel like we still ain't good enough. And then the next verse reflects on my experience as a teacher. And I'm trying to help out students and this and that, and how administration might really be thinking that I'm still not good enough. These kids are still not good enough to succeed. So for me, it's got a little more venom than I would probably strike with today. And one thing I noticed, at least now, and I made sure to mention Jesse Jackson in the book as well, because Jesse Jackson is a hero of mine, and he's a guy that I feel like doesn't really get a fair shake in the Black community and beyond. And I think that a lot of that is because of the way the media has portrayed him, as kind of a buffoon or a fast talking, preacher man or whatever. And it's like, yo, this was Martin Luther King's right hand guy, like, we got to put some respect on his name. So he's literally walked the walk and talked the talk, in some of the most dangerous of situations that many of us would not. And I think for that reason, we owe him a lot of respect. Also, for him mounting the first serious run for president from an African American, So I was really young when that happened. And I talk about a lot of that in my time in DC, like seeing Jesse running and being influenced by that. And so that, I think I wanted to bring that back to that. And I just thought also, he was hilarious. I thought the speech was hilarious. And I loved how I could use a piece of that in a serious moment and try to break the monotony. That's really what it was. Like, me with the venom that I think the song had, I wanted to end it with his point of, matter of fact, we came here on a foreign policy, and so it's like, yeah, you're right, so it's some humor, but it's some truth in the humor. So in the beginning, we get Barbara Jordan, we get a very serious thing. And then by the end, I wanted to relieve a little bit of the tension. In general, that album, I love it to death, but I do feel like it's a little heavy, and so it may, for me, it has a lot of venom because there was a lot of disappointment around that time, at least for me. And so I was expressing that. And so that use was for me to try to loosen the mood a little bit, for sure. I thought it was one of Jesse Jackson's finest moments in his run.
So when I was listening, when I heard Barbara Jordan initially, I thought it was Dr. Frances Cress Welsing when she was speaking, because if you listen to those two ladies, similar voice patterns and tone. So that's what threw me off.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah, when you listen to both of their speeches kind of side by side, similar cadence, similar voice pattern for sure. I wonder if one was influenced. That's an interesting point.
So I enjoyed there's not necessarily a question for this. It's just more of a statement. I enjoyed Push, and I'm glad that you decided to keep on pushing and bringing meaningful music into my life. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Push is probably my favorite song from that, and maybe top 5 for me songs that I've written. And it's weird because at the time, because I was in that moment, I didn't realize the specialness of Push until I wrote the book. Like, Push should have clearly been the first single. Should have been the first thing I ever did. But yet I was like, oh, well, Raise the Bar is a little more, danceable. It's a little more like I used to do a little move where I'd get everybody to raise their hands up and raise the roof. Remember we used to do that? Woo, woo, And so it's just my way of engaging with the crowd. But in actuality, Push has been the song that's had the most staying power from that album. And I realized it because it's the song that had the biggest, most important story for me, not to go back into it too much, but yeah, I was at my lowest point when I wrote Push. And so for me, it is the most special song. So I should have treated it as such then. And I maybe wonder if things would have happened differently for the album if I had, but I was kind of more ashamed of my hurt, than wanting to kind of put it on Front Street,
Another thing, the final section of this part on the Call album was the Tainted Love trilogy, because thanks to parts 1 and 2, I was introduced to When I'm With You, Everything's Cool by Jerry Butler and Don't Turn Around by Black Ivory. So thank you for that. The only thing I could not figure out what song you flipped for part 3 for the life of me. I tried, but
okay, give me a second. I'm gonna find it. What is it? Gosh, what is it? It is. Gosh, I could clearly hear it in my head, but I sped it up so fast. It's Lord, please send her to me. Oh, gosh, I just can't even. But it's been used again. It's been used over and over again. Okay, so I'm going to find it because it's been used in Jay Electronica's song Exhibit C, which is one of the biggest hip hop records for a lot of people of all time. And so if I search that, there's a site for this. There's a site called Who Sampled. And I know K Murdoch isn't really a huge fan of it because they're kind of giving up the goods here. They're kind of snitching, and that's like a kind of an unwritten thing that you shouldn't do in hip hop. But gosh, okay, it is Cross My Heart, Billy Stewart. That's what it is.
Okay, thank you. Because
Cross
honestly,
my heart that I love her. It's such a good song. It's really good.
I've never actually been to Who Sampled, because I'll actually just take the lyrics, type them out, and just do massive Google searches until I find something that matches up with it.
You dig the old fashioned way, I respect that. But yeah, there's a site Who Sampled. I've been lucky or unlucky enough to now that they put Mega Ran songs in there and K Murdoch songs. And so a lot of times, man, they'll pull it down to the wire. They'll be like, okay, K Murdoch sampled the drums from this James Brown song, and he sampled the tune from this Super Mario song, and he sampled the bass line from this, and yeah, they go really deep into it. So I wonder, probably not for Tainted Love, since that's not a huge track of mine. It's a 1.5 minute interlude, but it's the same sample for Jay Electronica's Exhibit C. So take a listen to that, and once you play it, you'll hear the very beginning. Once you hear Cross My Heart, Billy Stewart, you'll be like, okay, it's good. It's really good.
Another album that I would like to talk about, just briefly, is the Extra Credit album. Songs that I liked on there were Journey, Pursuant Hearts, and Old Enough.
Those were the 3. Wow, that's so funny. Those are the 3. No. 2 of those I recorded new for that album, but most of that was leftovers from the Random album. And I didn't have Journey finished. I did the first verse, and I did a second verse for it. And Old Enough I did strictly new for the album. I wanted to do a song with Chesky and Samus for a long time, and I'm glad we were able to do that. And yeah, those are some of my favorites. Airplane Mode I like a lot on there too. And what's that? Bliss of Solitude is another one of my favorites. Just like the I always like at least one time per album to do kind of a stream of consciousness kind of thing, where I'm just talking about what's on my mind kind of thing. And but yeah, those were the random sessions. To me, were some of my best stuff, and I just didn't want that stuff to go away forever. Like when I finished the random album, I had 32 songs, and I was like, well, this can't all go on the album, so we cut it to 17. Actually, maybe more than that. Like it was a lot, and I had a whole album's worth of stuff, and I was just like, all right, well, I'll save these, and we saved them for 2 years, and put them on extra credit.
Actually, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned Bliss of Solitude because I related to that song. Two lyrics that you wrote that stood out to me was, I truly find it interesting how people do a lot of talking, yet they don't be listening. And the other one was, ever have everyone around and still feel alone. I mean, those speak to me on a deep level.
Yeah, yeah. And that's literally been the story of my life, like, and I've as an only child, I've been able to find sort of a place of comfort being alone, but the worst kind of alone is when you're not physically alone, like people are near you and you still feel completely alone. Like no one can relate to you. No one's attempting to really talk to you about what's wrong or what, your true feelings. Everyone's just there in the moment. And I think Nas on his Duo album has a song where he says something like that. The only thing worse than being single was being in a relationship and wishing I was single or something like that. And I was just like, yeah, that's pretty deep.
Did you choose the time travel story as a setting for the video for Old Enough?
Yeah, me and the director, Kevin Parkinson, we talked a lot about time travel. I knew I wanted to dress up as an old man, so he took my idea and just went further with it. So I was like, I want to dress up as an old man. Like I want to do some, a wig and some makeup and have fun with it. And he's like, all right, how about we do, basically it was, the Scrooge story, it was like, let's go back in time, see what would have happened if you quit, and so he built a really cool universe around that. And then we searched the internet and found someone who had a DeLorean and who was nice enough to just let us use it. Turns out there's an Arizona DeLorean club. And I was like, must be nice. But yeah, there's a group of people on Facebook. I think there's one in every state now that are people who just have DeLoreans. They all get in clubs and talk about their cars. And I was like, well, can I just get into it for a video? And he's like, sure. Yeah, it's so crazy.
So on to the next album. Are the Ages albums a continuation of what you started with The Call?
Maybe, sorta. And I hadn't thought about that at first, but when I listened to them, I'm like, they are in a very similar vein. For me, though, they're more like where I am at that moment. It's like what's going on in the world at the moment of release. It's a quick time capsule of what's happening. So that's kind of where Ages came from. It was like, usually the intro, at least for the first one, the intro is like what inspired it. So for this one, it was the intro or the outro for volume 2. So I'm like, what's happening in the world? All right, I got to talk about it right now. And that's usually what the quick EPs or the singles or freestyles are for. Is like, as rappers, it's awesome to be able to have that luxury that we can just get out and speak to the people when something's going on and when we have something to say, so it doesn't have to be a full album, doesn't have to be a big old rollout with a huge music video budget. Just like, no, here's 5 songs about where we are, and so yeah.
I mean, it seemed like to me, and this is just my interpretation, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I felt like the themes for both albums was to do better as people.
Yeah, and that's a big theme for myself, all the time. I'm just trying to be a little better than I was yesterday. So yeah, I'd say that's a pretty strong theme within them. And I wrote the first one in November 2019, wrote the second one in summer of 2020. So within that time, we've seen so much. Like my intro of Ages 1 is talking about Amber Geiger and Botham Jean in Dallas, and if you remember that story where the officer breaks in and kills a black man. And then the intro in Ages 2 is talking about George Floyd. You know what I mean? So it's like, man, some things just never change. And it's but also through that, it's like trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel, trying to be a better person, and also not being afraid to look inward with that. And that was a big part of why Do Better was a part of that album. And Do Better is like one of the more like cathartic songs I ever wrote, because I feel like as musicians, we're always kind of pointing the finger like, hey, now you go and do better. You be a good person. I'm already good over here, and that was one of the first times where I was not ashamed to necessarily talk about, oops, drop my controller. Not ashamed of talking about what I need to do better, in a situation that I learned from, and hopefully that people who listen to that will also learn from that.
And speaking of intros and outros, why did you choose me to be the radio DJ for Ages Volume 2?
Because of that smooth as velvet voice, dude.
Oh, whatever. I'm so nasally, it's ridiculous. I even asked my girlfriend, like, I'm nasally after listening to my recordings. Like, how did I even get to date you? She goes, well, you are nasally, but you are pretty funny. So I was just wondering, like, there's no smooth velveteen dulcet tones for me.
I think your tones are velvet for at least for what I wanted to do. I think that you have a total newscaster, radio guy voice, very matter of fact, but also soothing. I found it to be perfect. I was like, this is the guy that I think will nail this, and you did. Thank you.
Oh man, like, well, I appreciate it. I was not expecting that, like, and I have no problem admitting that, but admitting this, but like at that point in time, I was like going through as I mentioned before the interview, I was going through a dark time, and then just like I was like talking with Kyle, and then next thing you know, I get like a message from you out of the blue, like, hey, I got this project, you want to be on this? And I was like, did Kyle just tell this man like all the stuff I just told him? I wasn't gonna be like mad at Kyle, but it was just like.
No,
it was
he
purely
didn't.
coincidental.
He didn't,
no, I
by
didn't
the
think
way.
he would.
No. And I mean, even if he did, I wasn't gonna be like, all right, well, let me put on my album now. This will cheer him up. Like, nah, if you're the right guy for the job, and that's why I wanted you on the album, not like, any other reason. But I didn't hear that at all. I didn't know. It was just like, you know what? I just felt like, in general, I think that we as musicians and as people, we got to keep the people who support us close to us, and whether we're having a real conversation or just texting, or, when I come to town, if we get to go out and eat. For me, I like to try my best to keep good people close to me, and good people who are supportive, who do appreciate, and have maybe good things to say and constructive things to say. Those people need to be a part of your story somewhere, and that's where the idea of like, Discord and staying connected and all those things come from. And it's like, for me, I feel like what I have is it's so small, it's so special that like I haven't blown up to the point where I don't have the time to reach out to people who are close to me and supportive. And that's a blessing for me. So I think, I just feel like, I don't know, the last couple of years, I've really been big on that, being like, dude, you got to show love to the people who show love to you. And that's always been like, that's been a big part of me, for sure. It's like trying to make sure I can do what I can to keep the people who appreciate what I do, like somewhere close by where I can reach out, where I can get advice, where I can run things by them, because I value your opinion and your support.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm not good at taking compliments, but I've been working on that. So thank you so much.
Nice.
So how did the collaboration with Del the Funky Homosapien come about for Proto Culture 2.0?
Ooh, well, I shot a wish upon a star on a starry night. No, man, this was complete luck, but it's the power of tweets and positive thinking. Again, I'm big on dates and anniversaries, and I realized that I listened to Del's Proto Culture song, which came out in like 99 or I don't remember. No, 2000. And I realized that, dang, it's 20 years old. And this is such a classic record. I don't know if he even realizes it. Like, it's a B-side for him. But this, to me, sparked a whole, like, nerdcore, nerd rap revolution. And, it's such a great song. And I was like, I need to recreate this. And so I asked DN3 to remake the beat. And I was just like, yeah, let's do it. Now, who should I get on this song? And I started thinking, like, who would be the other rapper? Like, on the original song, it's Del and his homie kind of just talking about games. And I'm like, if I was going to like just wax poetic about video games, who would be the person? And I started thinking, all right, maybe Richie, all right, maybe Kadesh, maybe Mark Cooper. How about all of them? And so I just started thinking like, yo, if I get everybody, that'd be great. But then I was like, yo, what if I could get Dell? And I just tweeted it like, yo, somebody tell @Dell that I have a really, really great idea. And I think it'll be dope. And so I start getting all these messages from other people being like, dude, if you get Dell in a song, that'll be so epic. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I don't think it's going to happen. And then like 2 days later, Dell responded to the tweet like, sup. And I was like, word? I got a sup? Okay, so he knows I exist. And so I also remember that a friend of mine who lives in Oakland, I got a shout out. What's his name? AO Lyrical, Aaron. Such a really dope nerdcore artist and mix engineer. Lives in Oakland. Told me a long time ago that KU, who's the other guy who's on Proto Culture, was his mentor. And I was like, hey, do you still know KU? Do you guys still talk? And he's like, yeah, I do. Can you ask him to get me in touch with Dell? Like, this is a total pie in the sky, but do you think it could work? And he's like, I don't know, man. From what I hear, Dell is a very reclusive man. He doesn't get found if he doesn't want to get found. And I was like, okay. So he connected me to KU, and KU said the same thing. He's like, Dell's like a mountain man. He's like, he comes down from the mountain once in a while, and then he just disappears into his cave. Dell is a myth. He's a legend. And so I was like, he's like, I don't think it's going to work. And after a few days, he's like, yo, I did ask him. He's like, in fact, you want his number? And I was like, yeah. And so he gave me his number. Like, this KU is the nicest guy in the world, because I don't know if I'd give away my friend's phone number if somebody asked. But and I was like, all right, here we go, shooting my shot. So I texted him like, hey, Dell, like, you don't know me at all. I'm Mega Ran. KU gave me this number. I just would love to remake Proto Culture with you. And he's like, a week later, he responds, Proto Culture? Wow, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Oh, man. And he's like, well, anyway, tell me about yourself. And so we just start texting nonstop. Favorite video game, favorite hip hop album, favorite this, favorite that, favorite soul samples, favorite, everything. And so we just become friends, which is crazy to say. Like, we just become friends over these texts. And I was like, I don't want to divert this conversation back to this Proto Culture song, but I got to try it. So I was like, so here's what I wrote for Proto Culture. And then I sent it to him, and he's like, yo, this is dope. And he got it back to me the same day. And I was like, holy crap, we did it. And start mixing the song. And again, all my friends are like, dude, if you get Dell in the song, you better get me on it. And I'm like, sorry, guys, I'm keeping this to myself. But we decided to do a remix. And then I got all the nerdcore guys on there. There's many who could respond to me at that time. So Frontalot's on there, Lex is on there, Mark Cooper, AO, who made the connection, is on there. KU, who rapped on him on the original, is on there. So yeah, I wanted to make sure to get all of the people on it who helped me to make it happen. And just to let him know, like, dude, this song was the blueprint for us. Like, nobody rapped about video games on beats that were sampling video games before you did this. Like, I don't think anybody did it, and he's like, wow, I never thought about it like that. I just did it. Turns out he was commissioned to do that by a guy at Sega. So he shouts out the president of Sega at the time on the song, which is so crazy.
All right. And collaboration is actually the theme for the last topic of this interview. And I wanted to talk about your collaboration with the Writers Guild. So what is the Writers Guild?
Ooh, Writers Guild is a collection of MCs. We're like a collective. We were first kind of like a crew. We were going to be like a Wu-Tang, but then maybe it's more like a collective, like a super group of guys who have all been, done some solo things in Arizona. And we come together every once in a while to get on songs. Most recent release we did was together. We did Upside Down on Ages. We did a little freestyle called Take 'Em to the Ground. So yeah, we get together every once in a blue moon, but these guys are like super lyrical cats who we love to kind of form like Voltron and rap really, really hard and aggressively. So it takes me back to my old kind of freestyle Ran. Freestyle Ran doesn't really appear on albums. for me. That's just for one takes, one offs, and Writers Guild material for the most part, where it's like heavy punchline, heavy aggression, heavy, just traditional beats and rhymes hip hop. The solo rant stuff is more, conceptual storytelling, things like that. But I love to get into this. This is like a muscle that I don't get to flex very often, which is the old open mic mega ran where it's just rhyming. And we have an album's worth of material. And honestly, what I always tell people, because it's so hard to get 4 people on the same page, I think that for us to get an album done, we need people to tell us that they really want it to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I think all of us feel like, well, if people wanted it, they would ask us for it. So I always say when people ask me, I'm like, yo, text Rocky or tweet Rocky, tweet Penny, tweet Dave, and tell them you want a Writers Guild album so we can finally make it happen. Like, I always say that. Like, anybody who asks me, I send it in a group text like, yo, somebody else just asked me about Writers Guild, just hoping to kind of spark something. But I want to get an album done with them so bad. We have an album's worth of material, but we don't fully, like, everyone hasn't fully like agreed on if they love it, and we want to love it. So at some point it's going to happen, but that's my crew. Those are my guys. I try to make sure to put them on, every project if I can in some capacity, So you'll see Penny, you'll see Rocky Tirade, Mr. Miranda to a lesser extent, because he's kind of stopped making music. But there's some assisted or extended members, Slop Funk Dust, the producer, and me and Penny actually have a project based on Macross, which is coming very soon, produced by Slop Funk Dust. So that's the next Writers Guild thing that's going to happen. All
right. Is the title of the Droogies Gotta Go a loose reference to A Clockwork Orange?
Yes, it is. Good catch. That was Rocky. What he did, he made sure that we all sat down and watched the movie before he wrote the song. Classic.
Oh, man. And final question on the Writers Guild. Since Where Did They Go was a dedication to hip-hop groups that have fallen apart, who would you like to come back?
Ooh, Outkast, no question. And I don't think they necessarily fell apart or whatever. I don't know. They just don't make music anymore. But I would love to see an Outkast album. I saw a little old interview or piece where Andre 3000 was saying that someone pitched to them the idea of a Tribe Called Quest meets Outkast album. And like, I was kind of blown away by that. Like, what? And then like, it didn't happen for whatever reason. But I would love to see Outkast for sure. Like, classic, the whole crew, like the original production crew, Organized Noise and the Dungeon Family, like getting back together like the old days. I would love that.
Okay, and final 3 questions for the interview. Are there any projects that you would like to promote?
Well, it depends. When is this coming out?
Within the next 2 weeks.
Okay. All right. So April 7th. So this will already be out. Last Benevolence on Random Beats is releasing a lo-fi beat tape called The Matins Requital. Is it Requital or Requital? Requital, right? I don't know.
Unrequited Love. That's the way I look at it.
So it would be Requital? All right. So anyway, that album's coming out. It's very dope. K Murdoch mastered it. So it's a beat tape on Random Beats. I'm putting out a single beat, which is called, what did I call this thing? I don't know. The funny thing about beats, you just kind of give it a name and then you just see what happens with it. Like the name is usually like what you initially were thinking at that particular moment. So that's kind of always how it goes. But I have a beat single coming out. So check the Random Beats page on like Spotify and things like that. You're going to be able to see a lot of cool tracks coming very soon. My good friend Torrey Masters released an album called Winning Wars Every Day, based on kind of some WWE wrestling. It's a tribute to black wrestlers. It's a really fun project. That's on Random Beats. That's out now. Next month, I don't know if I should talk about this yet. Yeah, why not? Okay, so this is the first time I've talked about it. Next month, there's an album called Maverick Hunters, myself and Novelist of Clear Soul Forces. There's about 6 songs for that. Novelist is coming to town next week so that we can shoot some videos. So we will have a lot of cool content coming out for you in the next 3 to 4 weeks or so. For that, it's called Maverick Hunters. He loves Mega Man Zero, and I love classic Mega Man. So we're going to be making a lot of references to that.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Jeez, I'm not even asking for scoops, and yet people give them to me. I guess I'm just so comfortable to talk to.
You are. What can I say? What can I say? You got a scoop from me.
Oh, thank you. I got a scoop. All right, if people wanted to find out more about you online, where could they go?
Well, go to megaran.com for anything Megaran related. There's megaranmusic.com for music, megaranmerch.com for merch. I'm mostly hanging out on Twitter and Instagram, though, and Twitch these days. So twitch.tv/Megaran and twitter.com/Megaran. It looks like Meg Ryan because there's like a capital M and a capital R, but it's not. It's just Megaran.
And final question. What would you like to say to the fans who've supported you throughout all the years?
Go listen to somebody better. No. Honestly, though, I do feel like fans who have supported me throughout the years, hopefully, support the people that I support and that support us, like Joe, like the MPC Collective, like anybody you see me working with. Please support them and give them your love, give them subscriptions, give them views, give them thumbs ups, give them all that stuff, because it's extremely important. The people who support us deserve your support as well. So I do appreciate you, but like when I tell you about a great artist like IQ or Richie Branson or Shubzilla or One Up Creative Mindframe, please go out and support those people so that they can go and do what they love and hopefully get to make a living off of it. And that's really what I want.
All right, those are some nice words, man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, folks, this is Joe from my geek scene with Megaran. Take it easy.
Bye.